Every decision we make has consequences, some immediate, others echoing far into the future. For me, the Life is Strange series wasn't just a series of games. It's a comfort series that's been through some of the most transformative moments in my life. What's poppin', everyone? It's your boy Levi, and I want to share how each game resonated with me, shaped my journey, and taught me to embrace the butterfly effect of my own story. Let's start with the original. Life is Strange introduced us to Max, a girl with the power to rewind time, but what really stood out for me was the connection between Max and Chloe, a friendship so real that the final choice made me contemplate life. Life is Strange taught me that life goes on despite anything you do to try and stop it. We're all the main characters of our own lives, and everyone is going through something different. It taught me to make your own story, carve out your own path, and live for yourself. People are going to come and go into your life, and that's okay. They're on their own path too. For me, choosing Chloe over Arcadia Bay wasn't just a game choice. It was symbolic, about living for yourself and not always sacrificing for the greater good. Chloe was that symbolism for my particular story. I could have what I wanted. It taught me to prioritize what truly matters to me. Giving her up meant that I'd be sacrificing what I really wanted, and I couldn't do that, even if it was selfish. Despite the heavy themes of the game, some of my favorite parts of the original Life is Strange are the moments where there's no conflict. Max and Chloe just seem to be teenagers and enjoying their time together. The scene that will forever live with me is when Max and Chloe break into Blackwell. They hang out in the pool after their antics of breaking in, and then sleep over and head to the diner for the next day. Throughout the game, in the back of your mind, there's this ticking clock as the storm approaches, that something bad is on its way. But in that scene, you just exist. And this game made me feel like I was just the third person hanging out with them. Next is Life is Strange Before the Storm, a prequel that dove deeper into Chloe's backstory before Max returned to Arcadia Bay. The story showcased the elusive Rachel Amber and her bond with Chloe. Their friendship built on trust and rebellion really hit hard for me. I've never had a close best friend. I've talked about it in my Class of 9 playthrough during the Emily route in the re-up, but I didn't have someone that I could go to about anything and knew would be unconditionally on my side no matter what. Yet, despite that, the story of Chloe and Rachel is the game that left the biggest impact on me. I got to fall in love with them falling in love with each other, and I got to watch and feel the love and trust develop between the two that I never got to experience myself. What I can relate to is the relationship between Rachel and her dad.
Why can't you just tell me the fucking truth?
My mother and I are not close, and we're fine that way. She wasn't having a secret affair or protecting criminals for her reputation like Mr. Amber was, but she kept many secrets from me in my childhood. Not being able to have someone to trust or have someone to go to and just keep being fed lies regardless of how much I needed her in a situation hit home when it happened to Rachel. My favorite part of Before the Storm is the developing romance between Chloe and Rachel. Love is awkward, and it's even more awkward when you don't have experience with healthy communication. I made the choice to tell Rachel the truth about her dad and Sarah, and if I had a best friend like Chloe, I would hope that she'd do the same for me. It reminded me of how some relationships, no matter how short, can change you forever. Watching Chloe fight for Rachel made me reflect on the moments I wish I had fought harder for people in my life, and how I wish some would fight harder for me now. It's always when I feel the most down that I just want to call and talk to my mom, but I know if I did, it'd go so poorly. The awesome adventures of Captain Spirit brought us into the world of Chris, a 10-year-old boy that uses imagination as escapism. I'm not here to tell you what the good and bad ways to cope with the stress of life and your alcoholic dad are. I'm a compartmentalizer, so I really don't have much room to talk on the subject. But I do want to talk about my experience with Captain Spirit, and how it was the first story game that I ever recorded. This was back on my now deleted old channel. I had an incredible time recording this series and playing for content while still being immersed in the world. At the time, I didn't know how to set up audio tracks and I forgot to record my mic for the series. I had played through the game in one shot, so I ended up just scrapping the project after. Is this game necessary to the series? No. It just gives you some insight on some characters you'll see in Life is Strange too. My favorite part of Captain Spirit was how interactive it was. Life is Strange and Life is Strange Before the Storm felt very restrained at times to the area that you were in. You had an objective and could do some exploring, but your task confined you to the area before you could go to the next. Captain Spirit let you explore your home in full, and maybe it was the one-shot setting, but I felt like I had more freedom to play that game than I had in the past. Overall, I think this is the weakest installment of the series, and I'd only recommend it as a completionist or if you want the full Life is Strange experience.
This has to be Mom's. She liked art.
Seeing Chris's creative world-building imagination was a nice comparison to how I create YouTube videos. figuring things out, making mistakes, and finding the joy of the process despite the challenges. Then came Life is Strange 2, a completely new story about two brothers, Sean and Daniel. Their journey through loss, resilience, and the harsh realities of the world was heavy, but powerful. From the read I get from the community on this game, people either think this is one of the best installments of the series or one of the worst. Yes, like the two brothers, I'm also POC. Yes, I've experienced discrimination in my life. Yes, it's ACAB over here. But outside of that, I don't really have much to relate to this game. I've never done the race, I don't have powers, I don't even have a little brother. I've lost a pet, I guess, but outside of that, there isn't much. I don't necessarily need the game to be relatable, but one of the biggest draws to Life is Strange for me was that Chloe and also somewhat Max felt like very self-insertable characters for me. I might anger a few people saying this, but I genuinely think the first two episodes of Life is Strange 2 are the most boring episodes of any of the Life is Strange games. It's not until after Daniel finds out the truth about their dad do I think the game picks up. I do think the last two chapters of Life is Strange 2 are very good and are some of the best chapters among Life is Strange as a whole, and I do believe it's the only Life is Strange game to have more than just the two-choice pivotal conclusion having 7 endings for this game. They deviated from the formula, and that might have been my favorite part about this game. I think it's fair to say that Life is Strange 2 is the least like the others, and while it does have its fanbase, I can appreciate that they turned Life is Strange into a full-fledged Choices Matter game. In terms of fundamental mechanics, this was a much better game than the previous Life is Strange games. But I don't play these games for the gameplay. I play for the story, and this one just didn't hold up for me. One thing I hated throughout this series was that Daniel had the powers. Playing as Sean and not being the one to control the powers wasn't as cool as I had hoped it would be. I found myself torn between protecting Daniel and letting him make his own mistakes, and didn't find it as fun as I had hoped to. It was even stressful at times. I felt like the side character to someone else's story. Maybe I'm just a Daniel hater because I did find him very annoying, but I didn't like being an ordinary human. Life is Strange True Colors took me by surprise. Alex's empathy powers had a unique twist compared to time travel and telekinesis, but what stood out to me most was her journey towards self-healing and finding her place in a new community. After an almost year hiatus in 2021 from content creation due to my health declining, I decided to do what I could to get back into making videos. When I recorded Life is Strange True Colors, I was living at home in my parents' basement because I needed their care with day-to-day activities. We had a 0.25 megabit upload speed, and a 10-minute video would take almost a full day to upload to YouTube, let alone the 30-minute Let's Plays I wanted to do. Sometimes the upload would fail or the Wi-Fi would go out, and it would take the whole day just to get one episode up later that week. While stressful, it did make Life is Strange True Colors feel like a production to me. I would record at night when everyone went to sleep, then transfer the raw file to a USB overnight, then go to the public library in my small town and spend the next day editing and upload it there on a slightly faster connection. Then that night, record the next part. This was my workflow for the series, and I honestly really enjoyed the routine of it. Obviously, I'm thankful I don't have to do that anymore, but I think the fact that it was such an extensive resume for a hobby is what got me up each day. For that alone, this game holds high to me. Playing Alex's story during a difficult period of my own life felt very comforting. Her persistence in uncovering the truth and embracing her creativity inspired me to keep pushing through, even when life felt overwhelming. My favorite part of True Colors is that it's built on all the good parts of Life is Strange 2, but the story is very similar to something out of Life is Strange 1. Alex as a protagonist was awesome. We got our fun D&D moment that we originally had in Before the Storm. We got the return of Steph, and the story of a small town secret and people being more deceptive than they let on was one I was very familiar with. We also returned to being the one with the powers, and while the power of empathy might not be as intense, I was happy to be back in the driver's seat. And the latest chapter to Life is Strange franchise, Max is back, and this time as an adult. This really felt like a full circle moment as she navigated relationships with peers and developed a new power. Oh man, this one might get some hate. Let me acknowledge a few things first. Yes, I'm aware, Pricefield fans, you got done dirty. Double Exposure chose to alienate one of its core fan bases by not featuring Chloe in the game. This was Max's story and Max's new life, and even when talking to Safi at the start of the game, if you select the option that you sacrificed Arcadia Bay instead of Chloe, she's still treated as a memory in the past. Seeing Max again felt like seeing an old friend who had grown and changed, just like I had. It was a reminder of how far I've come and how important it is to live for myself, not for others. And that's kind of why I feel like this game was made for me in a way, and the type of Life is Strange fan that I am. I'm not a Pricefield shipper, I'm an Amber Price shipper. and Max and Chloe have always felt like best friends to me rather than lovers. Crazy to me that Chloe didn't have more representation in the game if you sacrifice the town. That being said, Max and Sophie's relationship I very much enjoyed seeing. It makes so much sense that there's other people with powers in this world, and to see and learn about each other was an incredible ride. At the end of the game, Sophie wants to travel the world and use her powers as she sees fit, and meet others like her. Throughout the game, you're constantly reminded in Double Exposure that these powers are not easy to control. They will eventually make things messy. As the player, we're faced with the decision whether we agree with Sophie, that we have powers and we should use them how we see fit too, or side with Max and that we should put our powers away. Similar to the original Life is Strange, I took this as a matter of needing to live for myself. Maybe I'm a bit reckless, but I absolutely would want to explore the world with powers. Remember the best friend thing that I wanted so badly? It's Sophie and I against the world. After finishing Double Exposure, I didn't realize how much I missed having Max as a protagonist, and having her return as an adult now felt great. When Life is Strange originally came out, I was a few years younger than Max was in the game. The fanbase that fell in love with that Max has aged since then, and it feels like the devs were aware of that when making this game. Max being an adult facing actual adult problems felt like I was both seen and heard. Yet the game still balanced the teenage power-hungry feel with Max's new power, shifting timelines. I always get worried about games taking on multiple timelines, and yes, while there was a lot of plot holes, there wasn't anything that took away from the game for me. At the end of Life is Strange Double Exposure, we were presented with a still that said Max's journey isn't over yet, and I'm honestly glad. I would happily take another Life is Strange game. Like I've mentioned, I appreciated the series for trying new things, and while I still play a new game with a new story and new characters, at the top of my list are the 3 games from the Max world. Some things I'd love to see is the return of Chloe. Pricefield fans got tossed aside, and even for us non-shippers, I think we'd still love to see Max and Chloe again. I know I would, especially as adults too. We saw at the end of Double Exposure that Chloe had heard about the storm and reached out to Max. This could give them a chance to reconnect over it. I would also like to see Max travel with Sophie. This one would be harder to do because the ending of Double Exposure had you choose whether you wanted to side with Sophie or not. Even though the decision stats was majority agreeing with Sophie, I wouldn't want to alienate any fans that wanted to be responsible for Max's power. I hope the game wouldn't split the 2 routes, either adventuring with Sophie or finding Chloe, but I do think that assures that both sides are happy. I just want them both in one route. And finally, the last thing I want to see are cameos of old characters. Maybe it's the nostalgia talking, but clearly some of the old characters are still alive. I chose to sacrifice Arcadia Bay, yet we still see Victoria's crosstalk posts in Double Exposure. We know David made it out in Life is Strange too, probably because they were both in the bunker underground when the storm hit. But I wouldn't mind seeing Kate Marsh or Alyssa. Even another Steph or Alex cameo would go hard. Just please don't give me Warren. Across all the games, the butterfly effect wasn't just a gameplay mechanic. It was a reminder that every decision, big or small, shapes who we are. Looking back, I see how these stories mirrored my own and taught me to embrace the unexpected twists in life. Maybe I'm cooked, chat, but making this video and having much more story game experience than I did back then when these games came out made me realize that these newer games are not as good as I thought they were. I honestly don't think that matters to me. I just want to see Max go on adventures where her powers and get into the gut-wrenching scenarios. Let me know if you agree with that in the comments. What I do have high hopes for being a good game is Lost Records, set to come out this year. It's my most anticipated game so far, and I plan to do a Let's Play when it's released. If you're looking for some Life is Strange content while you wait, be sure to check out the end card for my Life is Strange Double Exposure Let's Play.